Welcome to a new season of 5 Questions with LeRoy Butler. This is our third, maybe fourth?
Third or
we
fourth.
can't remember, right?
Who's keeping count?
It's just been one grand season, just one continuous season.
I think the biggest transition since the Super Bowl 45 and now the season's been going pretty fast.
Yeah. The off season goes pretty darn fast.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So here we are, another season. Mm-hmm. Packers, I've seen a lot of prognosticators are picking the Packers to get to the Super Bowl. A lot of them are picking them to win it.
Have you picked them?
You'll have to buy the newspaper to figure that out. That would be Journal Sentinel. Purchase that at your newsstand or JS Online. Really, what's your feeling about how the Packers can do record this year?
Well, it's all about improvement, Tom. Can you improve from being one of the worst pass defenses in NFL history? Giving up a ton of yardage. And I know some of it's kind of skewed because it's a lot of garbage yards, but it's still yardage. Have you improved the defense to this point to feel like you can win a Super Bowl? And really, if you look at it in all honesty, you lost Desmond Bishop. You actually lost a guy.
Right.
I mean, I know we're going to talk about later, you've added Nick Perry, Worthy, and some of these guys, second-round pick from Michigan State. But being a defensive back, if you're going to move Woodson to safety, Tom, who's the next guy who's going to be that nickel safety?
Right.
All those things are going to the point where you're talking about picking teams to win divisions, to go to the Super Bowl. I think for the most part, fans don't care.
Right.
They just look at the green and gold, number 12, scoring touchdowns, but, because they still were 15-1 last year.
Right, but most people will only remember the Giants game. They lost.
You may be right.
They lost in the playoffs. What good was 15-1?
And how did they lose?
Right.
They lost in the secondary, explosion plays and things of that nature. And not to mention Aaron didn't play flawless.
And they coughed the ball up, too.
Yeah, and they turned the ball over. I think that's a recipe. So all that going into have they improved enough through training camp, because you see them every day.
Right.
Have they improved enough? And maybe some of the guys who picked them to win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl say, hey, yes, they've improved.
Yeah. One thing I think you can say is that they've picked up a lot of speed on defense.
Yes.
I think they were sorely lacking that, and I think with some of those draft picks they have. Let's talk about Woodson's transition to safety. As someone who has played safety, who actually started as a corner, right, and made the transition. What are we talking about for a guy this late in his career to move to safety?
Well, when you're in your 15th year, you feel like, what can you bring to the team? If you go back from Woodson, his transition from Oakland, people really didn't know what kind of player he was. He was stuck at cornerback, stuck in a terrible situation. You come to Green Bay and you're a Hall of Famer. Now you're going to a position that really, to me, can put you in another stratosphere, because you can control a lot when you're at safety. But remember, he won't spend a lot of time in their base defense at safety.
Right.
They play a lot of the nickel, so he'll be close to the line of scrimmage, something I also did. He's going to be able to affect game time. He's going to be able to cover the best tight end at times. He's going to be able to blitz at times. And he's going to also have free range to do whatever he wants to do. As they say, gamble a little bit. So you'll see his numbers be sort of the same like they've always been. 6 interceptions, 5 sacks, something of that nature. But what the problem with moving him, it affects another guy.
Right. A
lot of moving parts. And I don't know if that's the best way to go right now.
Right. And the big part you're talking about is that replacing him at the safety position when he moves to the nickel slot position.
Yes.
And
that's going to be an unproven guy.
Right. Right now it's between M.D. Jennings and Jerron McMillan, the rookie. Probably, they'll probably go with experience, M.D. Jennings, but let's face it, he hasn't started a game. He was just on the roster all last year.
Well, he'll be targeted day one.
Yeah.
I think San Francisco, being a playoff team, and some guys are picking them to go to the Super Bowl, he'll be targeted with the Randy Mosses of the world, Vernon Davis of the world. Those guys are going to go after a guy that's unproven. Now, Richardson could be another option, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because if you're M.D. Jennings, just don't make any mistakes.
Right.
And if the people looking at this look back to the San Diego game when Antonio Gates went up and ran what we call a post route and scored. It was on Jennings. That was his first time seeing that kind of action.
Right, against that kind of a player.
That kind of a player. He's going to see the same type of player, Vernon Davis, first week. So it's going to be some problems.
Okay. Last thing about the defense. Who do you start on the right side right now, Sam Shields or Jarrett Bush?
Well, I think this defense, two people, I'll get into the offense later. On defense, the one person that you have to have starting is Sam Shields. Sam Shields has to be the guy that can transition his game to a very good corner to last year regressed way back. Wasn't a great tackler, out of position most of the time. I would start Sam Shields. He has Super Bowl experience. And not only that, if I can just grab him one day and say, listen, nobody can outrun you. You can be one of the most aggressive corners if you understand the speed that you have. And for all of OTAs and training camp, he got hurt doing family night, I look at the depth chart. I saw Bush, I saw Casey Hayward, Devon House. Casey Hayward, all these guys, I wasn't seeing him. I was concerned about that.
Yeah. Devon House would have been the perfect starter because of his size. In that first 4 weeks, they're going to face
he's a willing tackler.
Huge, right.
And that's all you need, really.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about first 4 games, and then we'll get into the 49ers in the opener.
Okay.
That schedule is pretty brutal. In part because it's got so many different moving parts, the Sunday, Thursday, Monday, Sunday. So, and you're talking about 49ers, Bears, Seahawks, and Saints. That's a pretty tough stretch. What do they have to be coming out of that?
Well, I think for the most part, the first 2 games are a must. You got to get out of the box fast because last year when you played the Saints, you won the game, but it was still on the 1-yard line. They could have tied it. And then you go out to Carolina and it kind of stumbled a little bit, but you won the game. This year, it's very important because you're playing teams now that, other than Seattle, probably be in the hunt for the division or even the NFC. So San Francisco, they thought they should have been in the Super Bowl.
Right.
2 or 3 plays, and I think they could have been in the Super Bowl. So the Packers got to get out of this first 4 3-1.
Okay, and quickly, 49ers, how good are they?
I think they're the best, and we'll talk about it at Exit and O's. Stay tuned for that. I think they're the best defense that disguises a lot, but the offense don't make a lot of mistakes. They added Randy Moss, and they added the Michigan guy from the Giants.
Manningham, yeah.
Mario Manningham. They got a lot of great things. Frank Gore, running back. LaMichael James from Oregon, big play guy.
Brandon Jacobs.
And they got Brandon Jacobs. They got a fiery head coach that wants to win in God's country.
Yep. Okay. Quick record this year. Packers record.
I say 10-6. I think it's going to be 10-6 because it doesn't really matter what your record is. Because I know I'm going to get a lot of people on my Twitter at Leap36. But you can't pick them to be 15-1 again with that secondary. But it doesn't matter, Tom. Get in the playoffs, win in the playoffs. The record is not that big of a deal, man. I'm
going 12-4. You go 10-6. We'll see what happens when it's all over. All right. You have to.
Yeah, I want to thank CynicsMarket.com for being another sponsor. WJ Kuna, and also we added another sponsor, and that's the Salvation Army. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Really appreciate it.
And don't forget X's and O's. We're going to talk about Packers, the addition of Cedric Benson, and we're also going to talk about the 49ers defense.
49ers.